The hunter's tale. His woman and child were taken while he was out hunting. Walking home with a couple of rabbits slung across his back, he had an uneasy feeling. Something had changed. His feeling was confirmed when he reached the little trail that led to their hut. Usually by that time, just before nightfall, she had a fire going, but there was no smoke. The air felt empty and hollow. Subtle changes caused his mind to spin with questions. The questions buzzed around his mind while he searched for clues. What could have caused her to delay in starting the fire? They had been together long enough for him to read her silent messages. As he approached the yard that surrounded their little homestead, he found her comb lying in the mud. The hut was cold and empty. He did not wait until the sun came up. Holding her comb in his hand, he started to sense what had happened to her. The reason for this was difficult to explain. He knew her. His heart was tuned to hers in some mysterious way. He sensed that something was off earlier when he scared a doe that could have fed them for a good long while. He was grateful for the rabbits he caught and some snares he set earlier in the morning, but with them he also carried a sense of disappointment. Once outside, he raised his face towards the stars and said the promise prayer they shared every morning. The exact words were meant to be secret, just between the two of them. The prayer bound them together. When he spoke the words, it helped tune his mind to her so that he could feel her. Opening his heart, with clear, steady breaths, he turned. He turned until he felt the rhythm of his heart change and knew he was headed in her direction. The wind blew across his face, and for a moment he could smell her, confirming the direction he had to go. He just needed to move, and move he did. That first night, it was the full buck moon. The night was warm, and he had plenty of light to see which way the thieves went who had taken his family. As much as he hated to admit it, he was frightened. She was his comfort and his companion. There was a hole of despair that threatened to consume him, but the wind would send her scent to him, and his courage would return. They would not kill her, he reassured himself. She was clever. She would protect their daughter. He had taught her how to fight, just like she had taught him how to roast small game without burning it. When the sun came up, he paused by a stream to rest and cook, trying to eat what his worried stomach would allow. The smell of meat reminded him of their early days together, before they built the hut. He cooked one of the rabbits the way she liked. The other he cooked long and slow, burnt all the way around, the way his uncle taught him. That way, it could be packed and carried without spoiling for a bit. He swallowed hard, holding back tears. He knew that if his mind was calm and clear, he would find her. So he continued, calm, focused, steady. He repeated their promise prayer every evening as the sun was setting and first thing in the morning. He could almost hear her voice alongside his, and it would lift his spirits. Sometimes he would take out her comb and brush it across his cheek, imagining that it was her hand comforting him. He would not give up. But there was a moment when he thought he might. Several weeks into the hunt, he sighted a doe in a clearing. He didn't hesitate. His arrow struck him clean through the chest. When he went to claim his prize, he realized the doe was carrying a fawn. The slowly dying heart of the tiny unborn creature crushed him in a way he was not expecting. He sobbed, gasping until his gut shrunk and his ribs felt broken. In his delirium, he began beating and striking the bow with his hand. The string began to sing, 3 notes, similar to his woman's voice when she began their prayer. He wanted to pray, to hear her voice again, but he couldn't get the words out. So he held the bow against his mouth and let his breath carry the sound of the string as he struck it. He let the bow sing for him. He sang and struck his bow until it felt like time stopped. Until time stopped and the doe stopped being dead. Until time stopped and his family was together, home and safe. Until time stopped and he was home somewhere in his heart. He wasn't sure how long he sang because for him time stopped. Then a voice made time start again. A company of men in rich clothing was standing all around him. They were impressed with his skill, drawn to the place by his singing. They had never heard music like it. He was so deep in grief that at first the hunter was having a hard time interpreting what they were saying. One of the men, who was a little more observant, suggested that they set up camp and build a fire. The hunter sat in silence while the men worked around him. The observer introduced himself as a spice merchant. He sat down next to the hunter and started to describe the other members of the party, talking softly and looking at the hunter. The spice merchant said he was from a place the hunter had never heard of. He spoke with an accent. He admitted to the hunter that he was still learning the language. He had traveled from the coast and was looking for opportunities to trade. It took a while for the hunter to realize that the spice merchant was making small jokes at the expense of his companions. It wasn't until he compared one of the valets to a donkey, who then bent down to pick something up and farted, that both the hunter and the spice merchant laughed. The hunter started to tell the spice merchant about his family. The spice merchant was never shy about offering an opportunity to others. So he offered the hunter a trade. In exchange for helping the hunter find his family, the spice merchant would teach the hunter some songs and stories. Together, while they traveled, the hunter could perform while the spice merchant traded and gathered information. I wish I could tell you that the hunter found his family. When I met him in a little tavern by the sea, he was still searching for them. He said, every once in a while, he would sense that she was somewhere close by, so he couldn't give up. He recited their prayer every morning and every evening. He admitted that he had lovers from time to time, but he never could fully give his heart to another. His beard was speckled gray, and a crow sat on his shoulder. At first, he thought she was an omen of death, but eventually he got to know her better. He called the crow Hagaroo. He made a decent living traveling from town to town, singing songs and telling stories. People knew him by many names, but he always introduced himself as the hunter. When asked what he hunted, he would answer, that which all are hungry for. Then he would strike his bow and sing.